Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Seal based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. Before the start of the decisive battle between Arbao and him, Long Houchin used his eyes to ask Kia about what to do. During their last meeting with Yu Yi, when they alleviated the restriction placed on her, Yu Yi had told them about her engagement with Arbao, and before the decisive battle, Long Houchin had told Kia to contact Yu Yi. At the peak of Long Houchin's battle with Arbao, Kia used the restriction placed on Yu Yi's body to communicate with her from afar, and Yu Yi gave her a simple reply, to seize her. In the instant after the last clash between Long Houchin and Arbao, Kia, after entering her invisible state, had two choices at her disposition, which were either to ambush Arbao, or to seize Yu Yi. In the end, Kia went for the safer choice. After all, the last time when they attacked Arbao, he used some unstoppable means to escape. If this were repeated, they would undoubtedly get wiped out by the remaining demon hunter removers. Therefore, seizing Yu Yi was the most dependable option. The reason why Long Houchin teleported Yu Yi away was simply to guarantee her safety. With Kia in her state of awakening, whoever were to irritate her, Yu Yi would perhaps get killed due to the unstable killing intent emitted by Kia. And if Kia completed her awakening, Long Houchin didn't know what would happen either. In either case, Yu Yi's life would also be put at risk. After cooperating several times, Long Houchin had gained some trust in Yu Yi. The help she gave him was indeed not negligible, and he obviously couldn't blindly watch her die. Thus, he chose to teleport Yu Yi away to the Tower of Eternity. After their time spent training on the second floor of the Tower of Eternity, Long Houchin was capable of deciding the destination of any teleportation with the eternal melody. Without hesitation, he sent Yu Yi to the first floor of the Tower of Eternity. Wait here with me. After the backlash of my comrade receded, I will naturally give Princess Yu Yi back to you. Of course, this is if we can leave peacefully from here. Currently, he was in a really weak state. Arbao's terrifying fist intent caused havoc in his body, and his weakened spiritual cavities were nearly destroyed by that fist intent, so he could already not keep fighting. Arbao looked full of rage. He clearly didn't expect this result. Seeing Yu Yi get teleported away by Long Houchin was like having a part of his heart taken away. He indeed didn't dare move rashly. He couldn't gamble Yu Yi's life. Even while being surrounded by so many powerhouses all around, Long Houchin actually closed his eyes, took off his helmet, and put some pills in his mouth. These were healing pills made by Lin Xin. Arbao valued Yu Yi, to the extent of allowing them to get away, but the danger wasn't overcome yet. Long Houchin understood clearly that during the time of Kia's awakening, they would confront a great trial. He didn't know whether they would leave this place alive, but no matter what, he wouldn't leave Kia and escape by himself. Who expected the situation to turn out this way? The demon hunter removers all looked at Arbao. As long as Arbao gave the order, they would immediately launch an all-out attack. Arbao clenched his trembling fist. This was an extremely rare good opportunity. If they missed this one, perhaps, they wouldn't ever get to force Long Houchin into such desperate straits ever again. One day, I will destroy you. Arbao's voice was full of rancor, but in the end he didn't give the order to attack. Just like Long Houchin, he sat down and closed his eyes to recover. No matter whether it was the demon hunter removers or Long Houchin, neither of them knew that at a distance of 1,000 meters away from them, a pair of eyes was watching them silently. They belonged to a person covered entirely in a grey battle cloak, and were quietly watching them. His expression was changing constantly, as if he could hear everything that was happening there. This person was empty-handed, and didn't carry any weapon on him. When Long Houchin was peacefully sitting and recovering, he couldn't help but show some astonishment and admiration, a great pain, and many other complex feelings. Slightly stepping forward, the grey-clad man didn't let out any trace of sound, but he came to a standstill in the next instant. Not advancing further, his feet came to a halt and he narrowed his eyes, emitting a flash of killing intent. It produced concentrated _kai sounds in a range of 3 meters around him, and an immeasurable coldness was carried in his aura. This coldness seemed to be intertwining with his condensed killing intent. For the overwhelming majority of people, entering a state of cultivation needed an absolutely calm environment. If a single disturbance occurred, this state would very possibly be disrupted, which could result in danger for the concerned person. To say nothing about such a pressuring environment of being surrounded by enemies all around. However, Long Houchin sat there cross-legged, just like that, entering that state under the attentive watch of all the demon powerhouses. The great self-recovery function of the Mithril Foundation armor, and the boost provided by it to its user, could be seen clearly at this time. All those cracks on the armor were gradually repaired, and a faint golden color was exuded. It was as if with each of Long Houchen's breaths, the golden light in his body gained in intensity. One trace of black gas after another was ejected from his body, all stemming from Arbao's fist intent that forced its way into his body. Arbao's condition was similar to his, the only difference being that what he was driving out was the sword intent left by Long Houchen. Although Long Houchen's external spiritual energy was nowhere as great as Arbao's, his internal spiritual energy was a lot more pure, and thus, his speed of recovery was not the slightest bit slower than Arbao's. Moreover, he also had the pills made by Lin Xin. Nonetheless, his wounds were a lot more severe. Before, he just bore them with sheer willpower, but all the parts of his body were wounded to different extents, his energy channels were in chaos, and his spiritual energy close to used up. Even the core of his spiritual cavities sustained damage. Such heavy damage was absolutely not something one could recover from in a little time. Without the surrounding danger, after sustaining such serious damage, Long Houchen would have gone into an unconscious state since long before. But how could he now keep himself from falling unconscious? That was simply due to the powerful willpower supporting his body. But under its support, Long Houchen found out to his astonishment that on his lower abdomen, and at the place between his eyebrows appeared a new bizarre golden glint. As he was absorbing the external light essence to replenish his body, these two little glints seemed to expand with every breath he took. Although their expansion was slow, it was still distinct given Long Houchen's formidable mental force. What was that? Spiritual cavities at their initial state. In the past few days, Long Houchen's internal spiritual energy finally crossed 10,000 units. All his accumulated spiritual energy erupted in the previous battle, but the more important cause for this change was his astonishing willpower. If at that time, he'd let himself fall unconscious, this breakthrough would have been delayed by a lot. But through forcibly standing straight, and going into cultivation even when surrounded by the demon powerhouses, his potential was aroused, which directly helped forming spiritual cavities at their initial stage. And furthermore, these two spiritual cavities were both immediately set up. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Long Houchen finally forced all the fist intent out of his body, and although his body was still weak, the fist intent finally stopped wreaking havoc in him. What followed was only a process of recovery. And furthermore, he found out that his own judgment wasn't wrong. Throughout these 2 hours, the spiritual cavities in the space between his eyebrows and his abdomen already absorbed a certain amount of spiritual energy, and although it was little, they were gradually taking shape. After spending more time cultivating, and after the spiritual cavity on his chest filled, the stockpile from the spiritual energy gained from cultivating would go to these two new sets of spiritual cavities. In case these two spiritual cavities complete their incubation, his future cultivation, offense, defense, and storage of spiritual energy will become 3 times higher than now. That's the precedence of the 7th step over the 6th step, to say nothing that at the 7th step, one can make full use of the powerful amplification ability known as Brilliant Body. Arbao's body emitted some purplish black light, and his injuries healed faster than Long Houchen's. Similarly, he appeared pleasantly surprised that although he didn't truly start breaking through the bottleneck between the 8th step and the 9th step, as long as he was given some time, he felt confident that after a short period of time, he would become a powerhouse of the 9th step. Being a successor to the lineage of the demon god emperor, he was different from ordinary devil dragons. After his birth, he had a very weak strength, the same as humans, and his present strength was acquired through continuous cultivation. Because of his immense talent that far exceeded his clansmen, he could possibly become a supreme powerhouse like the demon god emperor. To ordinary devil dragons, after breaking through to the 9th step, the growth of their strength will reduce enormously, and unless they encounter very fortuitous circumstances, gaining a huge boost in strength will be very hard. Some good news at last. The gloom filling Arbao's heart finally lightened. As long as he breaks through to the 9th step, his position as successor should be settled, and he would then be able to start borrowing the true might of the first demon god pillar. At that time, his strength would increase exponentially, to an extent big enough to crush Long Houchen. Arbao couldn't help but lament secretly. If he could always have a rival such as Long Houchen to stir him on, his future growth would perhaps truly surpass his father. But as the ruler of the demon race, when given the opportunity, he still had to immediately kill Long Houchen, to eliminate a future threat. When Arbao started to reach the bottleneck to the 9th step, Arbao suddenly sensed a great change. Perceiving a substantial danger to himself, he immediately concluded his cultivation and suddenly opened his eyes. Long Houchen did the same. When the eyes of the two opened, a pair of blood-colored and a pair of golden eyes lit up. They exchanged a glance before turning their gazes to Kia. As expected, a change appeared on Kia. Her posture was the same as before. However, her body emitted a dusky luster, and her white skin turned crystal gray, while she stood there like a sculpture. Still, Long Houchen and Arbao's expression changed, because they noticed with astonishment that her crystal gray body exuded some physical killing intent. Right, her killing intent actually turned material. How? How is that possible? Arbao asked, dumbstruck. Right at this time, an overflowing killing intent burst out abruptly, taking the shape of a gigantic blade. With ear-piercing tearing sounds, a small rift appeared in mid-air, and this rift enlarged and gained altitude at an astounding speed. This was killing intent tearing up the space. The massive force and terrifying killing intent caused the demon hunter removers to instantly draw back, and even those demon hunter removers at the 8th step were no exception. From that small rift, a shining grey light abruptly dropped down, floating above Kia's head in the shape of grey ripples. On her forehead, a grey sickle gradually took form, and meanwhile, in the midst of the radiating grey, a black dagger emerged floating behind her back. A purple lightning was abruptly shot from the rift, accurately aiming at the dagger. Immediately, Kia's body shivered violently, and the black dagger suddenly turned grey, while the intense grey radiance was absorbed by it. The dagger expanded and curved, turning into a massive grey sickle filled with deathly stillness. This sickle was really too huge. Its handle alone exceeded 3 meters in length, and its 1/3 of a meter wide blade also was more than 2 meters long. The large grey crystals forming the blade radiated a soft light, looking like rippling waves, and a large amount of black luster filled the surroundings. As one might imagine, if such a lethal weapon was swung on a battlefield, the results would be a terrible bloodshed, awakening. Arbao finally realized the truth. What after effects? This was evidently an excuse made by Long Houchen. This powerful female partner was actually having an awakening, and that was the awakening of a god's chosen one. Right at this time, Arbao revealed his firmness as the demon crown prince, for whom the safety of all the demons took priority. Suppressing his own heartache, he shouted in fury, "Kill them." All of this happened very suddenly. The fastest ones to react were Arbao and Long Houchen, but the two of them were still seriously injured. Arbao's injuries were lighter than Long Houchen's and his recovery also a little better, but only half of his strength was recovered. At this time, the toughness of the resisting ice ring abruptly emerged. Immediately trapping Arbao inside, it forcibly repelled all the surrounding demon powerhouses several meters. Right at this time, an intense purple glint burst forth from Long Houchen's forehead, and a massive figure appeared brazenly in front of him. That huge creature was over 10 meters long. Raising all its 4 heads, the 8 eyes on them were filled with purple light, radiating nobility. 2 of their purple gazes simultaneously landed on Long Houchen and Kia, while the other 2 landed on the red and the blue figures. Immediately, a terrible scene occurred, and a massively twisted, extraordinarily tyrannical energy was exuded from this massive figure, covering a radius of 100 meters. Screams came out from the mouths of every demon, including even the Crown Prince Arbao. It came from the pain of sensing their bodies being ripped apart, as the magical power in them was going in complete insurrection, with the elemental essences surrounding them fluctuating madly. The demons of the 8th step were still better off, but only by hastening their spiritual energy to protect them could they save themselves. Those demons of the 7th step were somewhat weaker, and had their flesh lacerated. Although they weren't directly killed by the warping entanglement of essence of disorder, they still sustained massive damage. Hao Yue entered the scene. Long Houchen's good little brother and companion finally appeared on the battlefield. Why did Long Houchen not have Hao Yue help him out when facing Arbao before? The reason was to let Hao Yue gather power and prepare. Perhaps his fusion with Hao Yue would have injured Arbao further, but Long Houchen knew very clearly that he would still be unable to kill Arbao. Since things were like this, why not keep Hao Yue's strength hidden as reserve? By taking all circumstances into consideration, one could say that as long as Hao Yue was still present, he would have a method to ensure his safe escape from the battlefield. Essence of Disorder once again appeared on the battlefield, but it wasn't the same as before. The current Hao Yue wasn't merely 3-headed anymore, but became a 4-headed beast with the addition of Little Blue. Therefore, the tri-elemental essence of disorder now became quadro-elemental. But this change wasn't as simple as the addition of one head. The increase in power made the powerful multi-elemental chaos a spell of the seventh step. Hao Yue had prepared his magic long before, waiting only for Long Haochen to summon him to his side. Thus, the instant he appeared, he directly attacked with his spell. Because the demon hunter removers were very close, the instant this spell deployed, all the demon hunter removers were affected. If Long Haochen had enough people with him right now, this would be a great opportunity to wipe out a large amount of enemies. Unfortunately, Long Haochen could now only rely on himself. Giving a concerned look to Kia, he saw that Kia was still in the last stages of her awakening, and that intense grey radiance was fusing bit by bit with her. As the massive grey scythe behind her formed, she grasped it with her right hand. Kia's purple hair gradually gained a crystal-like grey coloration, gaining a sparkle, which seemed very strange. Long Haochen's reserves were already back to 1/3, which was sufficient for him to activate the eternal melody and teleport away with Kia, but Kia's awakening was not finished yet. If he chose this time to teleport Kia as well, who knew what the consequences would be? Even if it was just a tiny wound, he wasn't willing for it to appear on Kia. Thus, after Hao Yue released the essence of disorder, Long Haochen didn't carry out his original plan to immediately teleport himself and Kia, but clenched his dual swords and stayed at Kia's side to protect her. Hao Yue didn't immediately enter a weak state afterwards like the last time. Raising his four heads upwards, he suddenly turned around and swept his strong long tail around. Under the stifling influence of essence of disorder, even those demon powerhouses of the 8th step were in a very weak state, and when swept at by Hao Yue's bulky tail, 7 or 8 demons were instantly sent flying. How would the 12th and the 11th Holy Guard let such a good chance slip? The red figure was already rushing forward, and with a flicker of crimson, its immense bone blade was waved freely. 2 demons under the influence of essence of disorder were cut in half, and the blue figure waved its staff to summon 4 fist-sized crystals that faced all cardinal directions. Upon reaching the demons, they violently exploded and blew a large amount of demons away. The 12th and the 11th Holy Guard were nourished in Long Haochen's eternal melody, so their cultivation increased along with Long Haochen's. The 11th Holy Guard was originally an ice mage of the 7th step, but the 12th Holy Guard broke through to the 7th step along with Long Haochen. Therefore, both had a strength that reached the 7th step right when they appeared. They weren't equipped with formidable equipment, but had their battle skills from ancient times. The 2 great Holy Guards rushed out simultaneously, immediately repelling the demons under the state of essence of disorder. However, Long Haochen's group was after all surrounded by 6 demon hunter remover squads. Including Arbao, a total of 6 powerhouses of the 8th step were there. With the possession of their higher step, the effects they sustained from essence of disorder were relatively smaller. After a short time of turning frenetic, these 6 powerhouses of the 8th step finally showed the initiative to counterattack. Arbao was blocked by the 11th Holy Guard. The firebone blade danced freely, and searched for a gap in Arbao's defense. The aria of the Goddess of Light welcomed the red sword of the Fiend of the 8th step. With an ear-piercing buzzing sound, Long Haochen was shaken, but didn't draw back in the slightest, and his dense sword intent left a deep trace on the chest of his enemy. The 11th and the 12th Holy Guard were already back at Long Haochen's side, protecting his 2 flanks while displaying their fighting strength to the fullest. However, also right at this time, Hao Yue's essence of disorder started to lose effect and the powerhouses of the 7th step started to recover from essence of disorder, also launching their attacks from all sides. Crossing his 2 swords, Long Haochen was under the effects of the bursting spiritual pill and the bloodthirsty pill he took just before. He went as far as possible to muster every bit of his strength. However, he was in the end still a person and not a god, and when besieged by so many demon powerhouses, Hao Yue, Long Haochen, and the 2 Holy Guards all started to show some injuries. However, Long Haochen was still unwilling to give up. He clearly knew that as long as he lasted for some more time, Kia's awakening would be completed. Until this time came, he couldn't bring Kia back through teleportation. Bang, bang, bang Hao Yue and Arbao were battling with their full strength, and Arbao actually didn't hold much advantage. Hao Yue's 4 large heads were like 4 huge battering rams that attacked the enemies unceasingly. And the bulge on one of his heads emitted a faint red, and seemed to be breaking out at any time. The battle was growing desperate, and Long Haochen was using his full strength to exert a Jura strike in combination with the sword intent from the aria of the Goddess of Light, which finally sent that fiend of the 8th step flying. But a demon of the 7th step took advantage of the situation to attack right then, aiming a black blade at his waist. A fiery figure brazenly appeared at Long Houchen's side, forcibly using its body to block that blade. Its rib was instantly crashed, but this 12th Holy Guard still straightened its posture, and valiantly used his shattered bones to forcibly stop the opponent's long blade. Striking him with red glint, he forcibly sent that demon of the 7th step flying. A similar situation appeared in the other side. The spells of the 11th Holy Guard finally crumbled in front of so many powerful enemies, and he used his own body to block a purplish-black round projectile aimed at Long Houchen. One of its arms was ripped from its shoulder as it exploded. The injuries on Hao Yue's body were even more serious, as he was facing 5 demons of the 8th step by himself. His total strength was however only at the 7th step and no more. Even with greater physical power, he was in the end only at the 7th step. One cut after another appeared on his body as his mournful cries sounded out, but these injuries were healing at an astonishing speed under the shocked gaze of the demons. Hao Yue's attacks were still as frantic as before, the only difference being that his eyes gradually darkened and the purple light on his body became more and more intense. Bang! The red 12th Holy Guard was finally turned into fragments by the attacks of that fiend of the 8th step. Turning into a red glow of light, he flew back into Long Houchen's eternal melody, and the 11th Holy Guard on the other side could only last 1 second longer. The blue figure was also smashed to pieces, similarly returning to the eternal melody. As long as their master didn't die, given sufficient time, they would recover. Having lost his 2 protectors, Long Houchen had to face the encirclement of the demon powerhouses directly. Currently, he was already physically and emotionally exhausted. However, behind him, Kia was still absorbing the last bits of grey luster from the air, and didn't yet complete her awakening. Clenching his teeth fiercely, golden light was released from Long Houchen's eyes as a decisive power burst out from his body. An intense dark golden flame ignited. Just like Tian Qing did when pushed into a corner, the current him was igniting his own flame of life. After all, being a god's chosen one, the ignition of Long Houchen's flame of life produced far greater results than Tian Qing's. The illusion of the goddess of light that appeared before came to view once again, and with his dual swords carrying a profound sword intent, he forcibly chopped past 2 demon powerhouses of the 7th step. His 2 swords harmoniously executed Azura strikes, bursting against the red sword blow of a demon of the 8th step, forcing him 5 steps away. A black spear quietly struck from the vast sky, but it was not aiming at Long Houchen but at Kia, who was in the last moments of her awakening. Desperately spreading his golden spiritual wings to meet that spear with full force, Long Houchen forcibly deflected it, but the golden spiritual wings also couldn't bear this heavy burden. They shattered under the impact and were ripped apart, bearing large holes. Crack! A large blade violently struck the shoulder of the Mithril Foundation armor, leaving a deep indentation. A violent breaking sound came from Long Houchen's shoulder, and his whole left side went numb. Bang! Lifting up his knee, he parried another huge cone aimed at Kia's lower abdomen. The Mithril Foundation armor was in the end not omnipotent, and one could watch Long Houchen's left leg being twisted backwards. It was visibly fractured. But even then, his eyes still had the same look. Resolutely rushing to the side, he used his right hand that was still able to move to grab Kia. Long Houchen slung his arm around her waist and used his broad back to stop the purple ball of light aimed at her. In the midst of a terrible explosion, Long Houchen unexpectedly didn't let Kia sustain any damage, but he couldn't help but spit a mouthful of blood staining the helmet of his Mithril Foundation armor. He only could do this because, every time he met an attack, his chest bubbled forth with a golden light protecting him. Otherwise, he would already have been torn to shreds by these demons. A shout of extreme anger, proud, unwilling and full of rancor, abruptly resonated all around, and a massive purple glint of light abruptly shot out from Hao Yue. Be it Arbao, or all the other present demons, all were monstrously dispersed by that purple radiance. Arbao's expression was finally filled with distinct shock. Die. His voice was trembling for the first time. With a loud bellow, Hao Yue finally turned all his heads to look at Long Houchen. Looking at him, Long Houchen finally activated that golden skull on his chest, producing an intense golden light enveloping Kia, Hao Yue and him. Right then, the last grey radiance finally fused into Kia's body, and Kia's right hand firmly grasped that massive grey scythe. Tower of Eternity. Yui stood there, with a blank look on her face. Since Long Houchen teleported her to this place, she was in this state of fear. A strong deathly breath filled the air. It wasn't the same reek of death as from the darkness element, but an incomparable deathly stillness, emanating a feeling of imminent death. She clearly remembered Long Houchen's instructions, and thus didn't dare move in the slightest ever since arriving. She only stood there, completely stiff. Fortunately, the ice-cold murderous intent from Kia that almost froze her blood disappeared gradually in this place. Can they make it back alive? Yu Yi didn't know how she should be feeling at this time. For her sake, Bao was willing to give the two demon hunt squads the chance to escape, so staying unmoved by that was impossible for her. However, she was all the more unwilling to see Long Houchen and Kia die, and that was not only because of the restriction placed on her. Time passed very, very slowly, and Yu Yi sunk into a blank state here. Finally, after some time passed, a golden glint suddenly pierced the dimness, and immediately, a huge beast and two figures appeared in front of her. Long Houchen fell to the ground right after appearing, and Kia was still in that straightened posture. Hao Yue's four heads dropped to the ground right after appearing, and he lay down, his eyes closing. His body still emitted a faint purple glow. Right before falling deep asleep, Little Light raised his head with difficulty, casting a golden radiance on Long Houchen, providing healing for his body. Back, they all came back. Yu Yi immediately felt overjoyed at this great news, but she became quickly stupefied at the sight of Long Houchen's desperate state. His left shoulder was completely broken, with his arm dangling limp and lifeless. His right leg was bent in the wrong direction, and the Mithril Foundation armor had a massive hemisphere-shaped indentation on its back. The bones on his back were all shattered to pieces, and his state looked critical. From the current Long Houchen, she actually didn't feel the slightest breath of life. Why did he sustain such severe injuries? Since he could teleport here, how did that happen? Staring lifelessly at the unconscious Long Houchen, she was completely unsure of what she should do. After a long time, she came back to her senses, feeling ashamed, and rushed to Long Houchen's side with haste. Crouching down beside him, she carefully examined his condition. The current Long Houchen was in a desolate conditions. Deep wounds covered his whole left shoulder. The flesh was totally lacerated, and even his bones were visible. His body was completely covered in blood, and his left leg strangely bent. His whole back was pierced with blood continuously leaking out from his mouth and nose. His handsome face was deathly pale. Even a formidable priest would be helpless when encountering such serious damage. The most severe injuries were his crushed bones, and his continuous loss of blood from the countless wounds. Yu Yi very cautiously examined Long Houchen's breath and heartbeat. His breath seemed imperceptible, and his heartbeat very weak. On his chest, the necklace with the golden skull radiated a soft light, as if protecting his heart. It preserved his life, but after sustaining serious damage, Yu Yi didn't know how he could get healed. In particular, regarding the damage on his bones, if something turned out badly, it could end with lifelong deformities. Kia still stood on his side, preserving her initial posture, but the murderous spirit emitted from her showed unstable fluctuations, and her body was also trembling lightly. During the last moment of her awakening, although she already absorbed all of the inheritance bestowed upon her, she was in the end forcefully teleported to another space without having completed her harmonization, thus her spiritual energy was in chaos. What's to be done? What's to be done? Yu Yi anxiously looked at Long Houchen, as agitated as a cat. Being of the darkness element, she didn't dare try to help by healing Long Houchen, since this would only have the opposite effect. During the battle against Bao, it looked as if Long Houchen wasn't losing, but in truth, he was no match for Bao. The gap in spiritual energy between the two of them was too wide, and moreover, with Bao being the successor of the Devil Dragon clan. At the start of that battle, Long Houchen had stealthily taken the newly created spiritual ignition pill made by Lin Xin, stirring one's potential to an extreme extent. This spiritual ignition pills didn't produce an amplification as great as the spiritual bursting pills, but their duration was very long, and their amplifying effect was incredible. But it had even stronger side effects. By squeezing out excessive potential, it could very possibly cause permanent wounds. So that his comrades would be able to leave from there alive, Long Houchen was already doing his utmost starting from back then. Although he successfully broke through to the 7th step, the excessive overdraft made him enter an extremely dangerous state. In the last moments, to defend Kia, and give her have as much time as possible for her awakening, Long Houchen didn't spare any cost to act as Kia's shield. Otherwise, if she couldn't completely absorb the power from her inheritance, her life would very possibly have been in immediate danger. Although the current Long Houchen was nearing death, his face portrayed a calm smile. All those years ago, he told his father that he wanted to become a guardian knight, because he wanted to protect the people he cared for. And today he managed to accomplish that. For his beloved Kia, he nearly sacrificed his own life. If not for Hao Yue's pleading and his look filled with despair, combined with Long Haochen's consideration of his safety, he would probably have endured it even longer. A god's chosen one was still a person, and would therefore also die when inflicted with mortal wounds. Long Haochen had the protection of the Eternal Melody, the Mithril Foundation armor, and could share some of the damage dealt to him with his comrades, but his vitality was still rapidly decreasing. The serious internal and external wounds were stripping him of his life energy, and as the ignition of his soul was gradually receding, even his powerful soul was in danger to dissolve. Right as Yu Yi didn't know what she should do, and wanted to help by at least bandaging some of Long Haochen's wounds, a grudgeful voice suddenly resounded, "I really didn't want to come to such a nasty and deathly place. What have you been doing to end up in this state?" Under Yu Yi's shocked eyes, a faint green radiance bubbled forth from Long Haochen's stomach. And this green radiance was filled with the breath of life. As the green light was bundling up, a green-colored gate was gradually formed, from which a slim and fair little barefoot appeared, stepping out from that bright gate. Surrounded by green ripples of light, a fair little foot touched the ground, and a little girl, beautiful as a piece of jade, appeared from the gate. Her light blue hair was combed into two pigtails swaying on the two sides of her head, and her tender little face looked very childlike. Even while she was wrinkling her brows, she looked really cute. Yu Yi cried out in alarm. She obviously recognized this girl as one of those who inflicted great damage to the group of the demon god's successors in the illusory paradise. Afterwards, she had realized that this little girl was not only Arbao's target, but most of all the target of the demon god emperor, though Arbao didn't tell her about the greatest secret involving her. Yi Xiaolei pinched her own nose. "Annoying darkness smell, stay far away from me. Although you are his ally, I still don't like you." Saying that, she didn't pay any more attention to Yu Yi and crouched near Long Haochen. Seeing Long Haochen in such state, Yi Xiaolei couldn't help but wrinkle her brows even further. Although the good points of the sign of light are distinct in him, his bad ones are also obvious. To turn yourself into such state for no much reason, and have me come to this loathsome place, you're really really annoying. Although she was saying this, both her hands already started moving. Her dexterous hands lightly touched Long Haochen's chest, and a soft green radiance immediately scattered from her hands. In the time of a few breaths, Long Haochen's entire body was filled with the light green color of this aura of life. Yi Xiaolei's delicate hands moved lightly and rhythmically, and after pondering for a short while, she prudently turned Long Haochen's body, laying him on his stomach. When her hands examined Long Haochen's ruined back, her face immediately had a concentrated look. With a dense green light spreading out, the rich and powerful aura of life clearly felt incompatible with the deathly aura inside. But that powerful deathly aura present in the Tower of Eternity clearly dispersed to some extent. Yi Xiaolei was kneeling on the ground, and currently, her plump, but was stuck up as her back traced an arc, her hands slowly making a lifting motion. Immediately, one could clearly see Long Haochen's originally devastated back regain swelling, and a dense green light kept rushing forth into his body. The whole process was very slow, but extremely effective, and Long Haochen's back gradually regained its original shape. Yi Xiaolei once again lifted both her hands and her fingertips undulated, threads going from one part of Long Haochen's body to another, and vaguely, the sounds of contact between all bones in Long Haochen's body rang out. Every time a finger was pushed against Long Haochen's body, he shook slightly. After his shoulder came his leg. And after Long Haochen's right leg was healed, Yi Xiaolei followed with a massage of his entire body. From beginning to end, the most distinct feeling Yu Yi had was that an intense energy of life kept entering Long Haochen's body, arousing his latent potential while replenishing his consumed vital energy. Although Yu Yi didn't have comprehension of human priests, she was completely certain that even the best human priest couldn't possibly have healed Long Haochen's injuries in such a short time. And furthermore, it looked that no sequelae was going to remain. This healing force originated directly from the vital power of the great nature, making it go completely against logic. Just what happened in the illusory paradise? How could she tear up the space to get to Long Haochen's side? Right as Yu Yi was secretly alarmed, Yi Xiaolei lifted up her right hand, pointing a finger between Long Haochen's eyebrows. "Hey, you should wake up now. I'm really tired." A light groan was let out from Long Haochen's mouth, and after his body shook slightly, his eyes both slowly opened. Coming back to his senses, Long Haochen felt that his entire body was filled with warmth, yet he couldn't use the slightest bit of strength. With a tired look, she faced him, and her little chubby hand waved in front of his eyes. Hey, what an idiot you are. You just wasted a whole half day of energy from me. It's lucky that one doesn't get infected from another's idiocy. It's you. How did you come here? Did you just save me? Long Houchen blankly looked at Yi Xiaolei, gradually regaining his senses, and struggling to sit up, but not the slightest bit of strength was left in him. Of course. I was the one who saved you. Who else than me could heal you to such a good state? Hey, stop speaking, your injuries were too heavy. You need to lie down for 12 hours, if you don't want sequelae left on you. You're really dumb to all limits, to prefer facing death rather than immediately return to this annoying place. Yet, I really find your idiot side quite cute. And Kia? Long Houchen impatiently asked. Yi Xiaolei revealed a dumbfounded face. And you're not immediately thanking the benefactor who saved your life. Are you really dumb? Thank you, and Kia. As if admitting defeat against him, Yi Xiaolei stepped aside and pointed backwards. She's right there, no worry. Long Houchen followed the direction of her finger, indeed finding out Kia standing here. But right at this time, Kia's body showed slight movements and her dull look regained spirit. Kia. Long Houchen called out lightly. Yi Xiaolei naturally also noticed the change on Kia. Oh, she's awake too. Kia's stiff body gradually loosened, but her eyes looked once again at a loss. Seeing Long Houchen lying down to the ground, before seeing Yi Xiaolei and Yu Yi, she suddenly abruptly released a cold aura all around. Be careful. Yi Xiaolei cried out, abruptly throwing herself at Long Houchen, holding him and immediately rolling along with his body. The next instant, with a flash of grey light, with a slight pop sound, her gigantic sickle cut the ground like tofu. Yi Xiaolei was really delicate, and the sight of her holding Long Houchen was really funny. Nonetheless, at the current time no one was laughing. Stop, are you crazy? With a wave of her hand, Yi Xiaolei created a dark green-colored barrier in front of Kia, pushing her body several meters backwards. However, Kia's terrible massive sickle only flickered, before that dark green protective screen disappeared, split into pieces. The cold voice sounded filled with killing intent. Who are you all? Kia's sudden act also gave Yu Yi a great fright. Swiftly running to the side, Yi Xiaolei shouted in anger, so you're really mad, to the point of not even recognizing him. Kia blanked out, looking at Long Houchen, before lightly, shaking her head. Of course I don't recognize him. Just who? Who am I? She looked at a loss, but fortunately the murderous spirit emanating from her weakened greatly. Yi Xiaolei shouted in anger, he's your man. After he paid that much for your sake, nearly losing his life, don't tell me you don't even recognize him. Do you even have a heart? Kia's face scrunched. Lowering her head to look at herself and at the massive sickle in her hand, she then put her sights on the three before her eyes. But I really don't know who I am. You're trying to deceive me, aren't you? Those deceiving me have to die. Saying that, she raised up once again the sickle at her hand. Kia. Kia. What's up with you? Long Houchen called out in alarm. His face was full of anxiety, and when Kia looked at him, the sickle in her hand, finally stopping. I seem to really know you. You shouldn't be a bad person. Kia's cold voice appeared immediately somewhat softer, and from beginning to end, she watched Long Houchen's two eyes, as if trying to say something, but very rapidly, she buried her two hands into her face, letting out a cry of pain. The massive sickle in her hands disappeared right then. Kia, how are you? Long Houchen absolutely didn't expect this change to happen after Kia's awakening. She actually didn't recognize him, and seemed even to have forgotten about her own self. Yi Xiaolei also had a blank look, murmuring then, stop playing the amnesic one. Just what's wrong with you? After no less than a quarter of an hour, Kia finally recovered her calm. When she looked back at Long Houchen, she had yet another alarmed heartache. Who am I? And who are you? Why is it that I think of nothing? This video will end here. Thank you for watching.